I'm going to ask folks if it gives you a visual across your screen at all that we are recording. Does anybody have a visual that we are recording?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we won't have to announce it to folks who come in. All right, so welcome to the Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee meeting. I'm going to share the presentation with folks. And I'm gonna ask to see if people can see the presentation. Just nod your head if you can see it. Great. All right. Okay, so welcome to the optional Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee meeting. We won't have all of our committee members here, and we'll have a couple of additional folks that are interested in this topic. We're going to go over some of the folks, the information around the people who have applied for the Safe Routes to School Construction Competitive Grant Program. We are using Zoom, which is a new platform for me, and so it's probably a new platform for a couple of folks on the call. You'll see this bar at the bottom of your screen where you can mute yourself, you can stop your video, you can see all the participants, you can chat, you can there's some other features that we won't really use as part of this meeting, but really the participants, seeing other participants, muting yourself in your video, and having an option to ask questions in the chat feature is what we'll be using in our Zoom meeting today. So feel free to kind of use the next couple of minutes as we're getting started to press some of those buttons and test them out if you haven't gotten a chance to do that before. I also want to point out that when I'm not sharing my screen, and even when I am sharing my screen, I believe you can also, if you have a two-screen scenario, you can also see all of the participants in a gallery view, which is why we're using Zoom. We have an 18-person committee, and I wanted to make sure that we were all able to see each other whenever we were having meetings together. So in your upper right-hand corner, there'll be a speaker view and a gallery view, and you can toggle between those two things to have a large view of your speaker or a view of like the Brady Bunch where you can see everybody's face. So in our next couple of slides, we're going to welcome all of our advisory committee members and go around and do introductions. Our chair, Mavis Hartz, is going to help us with that piece. If you want to turn on your video during the introductions, it might be a great way to see each other in this time of being so far apart. During the presentation, if you want to turn your video off, you can. But if you're asking a question or trying to interact, it would be great if we had some face-to-face interaction with each other. So we'll get started with our introductions. And I didn't even introduce myself, but my name's Leanne Ferguson. I'm the Safe Routes to School Program Manager or Infrastructure Program Manager at ODOT. And Mavis is gonna lead us through the introductions of the folks on the advisory committee. And then maybe we can have some introductions of the other folks in the room. But maybe if you want to do the advisory committee members, maybe I'll take over after that and we'll get some of the other people in the room.
All right, so I'm Mavis Hartz. I am here in LeGrand, and it is not smoky here yet today. It should be later. And I'm going to run down the SRAC members on the agenda. So when it is your turn to say hello, please unmute yourself and show me your face if you can with the video. So we're going to start with Scott. Is Scott here? All right, no Scott. How about Sunny Chickering? Hearing none. Kim Crabtree. How about Lawton? Do we have a Lawton today? How about Steve Dickey? Rob Innerfield? Dana?
Hi everyone, Dana Nichols, City of Beaton Planning Manager representing small cities. I'm happy to be the only one here so far.
Do you have your video up? Because I can't see you.
I do have my video on, but I'm going to turn it off now. That's okay.
Okay. I'm glad. There we go. Luis.
Hello, everybody. Stay healthy.
Hello. Brian. Hearing no Brian, we move on to Kari. What? No Kari?
First day of school stuff with Kari.
Gotcha. How about John? All right. Moving on to JD. How about Lisa, Milky? And Carolina? Trevor Alnob? I nailed that one.
Arnold.
All right, then for ODOT staff, Leanne.
Leanne Ferguson, the Safe Routes to School Infrastructure Program Manager for ODOT.
Sweet. Heidi.
Hi, I'm Heidi Manlove, non-infrastructure programs, would do education, programming, and grants.
Awesome. Susan.
Hi, this is Susan Peichman. I'm the Strategic Investments Manager in the Public Transportation Division.
Nice to see you. Tracy.
Tracy Pearl, Transportation Safety Division, Highway Safety Section Manager. I work closely with Heidi.
Very nice. And then Alan.
I don't think Alan's joining us today.
And Marcia?
Or Marcia.
Anybody I missed?
Rob Innerfield
Yeah, hi,
just
this is
joined.
Rob.
Yeah.
Hi there. I just
Hi,
joined.
Rob.
I'm going to be turning the video off for a little bit, but yeah, hi, I'm here. So nice to see everybody.
Nice to see you, Rob.
Wonderful. All right. So I think at this point, I get to turn it over to Chris.
I am Chris Watchie. I am working with Leanne and the committee on facilitating this meeting. And just a couple things about this meeting. No decisions are being made. This is a pretty high-level overview of the 99 applications that came in, totaling $73 million with a pot of money for $26 million. So in the past, we've done very long workshops, 6-hour workshops, and we've broken that out into more palatable bites. So it's not too long. And so now, given everything that's going on before evacuation orders and air quality, this meeting is just a primer for the decisions that will be made next month. So just a quick high level, go ahead, Leanne.
I wanted to go ahead and get a couple other folks on the that are on with us so that we can get a good head count of who else joining us on our meeting today. That's not advisory committee members. So
Perfect. Thank you.
I've got a participant list down here, so I'm just going to call through the names. And when I say your name, if you could unmute yourself and tell us who you work for or what's your interest in the meeting today. Ron Irish. Ron, you might still be on mute. I'll keep going. We'll come back to Ron. Robert Miller. We'll come back to Robert. Tina Skiles. Don't forget to unmute yourself. Hi,
Hi,
Tina.
this is Tina. I listened into one of your earlier meetings. I'm a Safe Routes to School coordinator, and I just wanted to understand more about the committee and how it works. And we had also submitted some applications.
Awesome. We also have two folks on the call that are that we've been talking to for new members to our committee, which we should have more information about that in October. But we've got Noelle Mickleberry on the call, as well as Lauren Morris. Noelle, will you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks. My name is Noelle Mickleberry, and I am Metro Safe Routes to School coordinator up in the Portland metropolitan region.
And then Lauren Morris.
Hi, good afternoon. Lauren Morris. I'm from the Coquel Indian tribe, and I will actually be taking Lisa Milkey's position on the committee. I am the mobility program coordinator for the tribe.
Great, thank you.
And Leanne, Robert Miller here, City of Eagle Point.
What city again?
City of Eagle Point.
Oh, great. Thanks for joining us. Let's go on to Christy Gilbert. Christy, you might be muted. We'll come back to you, Christy. We've got Clinton Doxty.
Yes, hi, Clinton Doxty here. Just mainly interested in the process and more to observe.
Great, thank you. And we've got, I think that might be everybody. That's everybody on our participant list. Oh no, Anthony Gamalo.
Hi there. Yeah, Anthony Gamalos, Senior Transportation Planner, City of Salem. Just calling in. We submitted 5 projects, and just want to know a little bit more about how the process works, and just to get in, like, it's always good to get an overall context for the whole thing. So happy to be here.
Great, welcome. Thanks to everyone for joining us. If you are here to provide public comment, please go ahead and put it in the chat box. That will allow us to have that part of our meeting. You'll also notice in the chat box there is a link to the meeting materials. So if you want to look at the PowerPoint presentation or any of the other things that we'll reference in this meeting, you can look at it on you can click to it on our Safe Routes Advisory Committee page. So I think that puts us on to the goals, the next slide, our goals for this meeting, and I'll turn it back over to Chris.
Great. As I mentioned, it's no decisions being made at this meeting. We're looking at the process ODOT has used to this point, as well as what this SRAC process will be to review the 99 applications. Again, $73 million in requests for the available 26 million. So if we can go to the next one, please. In the past, well, when we used to meet as a committee, I always brought flowers, and so I brought flowers to this meeting just in case, so we could still have that sense of meeting together. We'll quickly see if anyone has public comment. We will do a high-level review of the application, the timeline, what the scoring matrix, what the approved SRAC lenses are if needed, and then an in-depth analysis looking at from what agency, from what ODOT region, the equity analysis, and from also the geographic scope. So inside an MPO, outside an MPO, is it on a priority safety corridor? The equity analysis looking at free or reduced lunch. we'll talk about how the whole scoring process works in the 3 steps for the SRAC to review and then to make their recommendation. And then the upcoming decisions. There is a decision for the SRAC, not at this meeting, but we will review for the rapid response subcommittee. And then Leanne's going to touch on the Oregon Transportation Commission if the SRAC has any desire to submit some comment on the STIP, the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. Finally, we will do an update from ODOT, and those staff updates, there's a lot afoot in terms of ODOT's reorganization, do a quick update from Heidi on the Transportation Safety Division's educational program, and then look at what the next upcoming decisions will be for the SRAC for committee membership, as I just noted. Anything to add to that, Leanne? Okay, so we've asked for people to indicate if they have any public comment, and now would be the time to put it in the chat box so we could call on you. And we'll just pause here for a moment. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I think we can move on with a high-level review. Leanne.
All right, so we've got some high-level analysis of all of the applications that were submitted. You can see the full list of applications that were submitted in the meeting materials. There's a link where you can download that list. We had about 99 applications equaling $73 million in requests. Here's sort of the overall timeline of that process. We did some outreach and some workshops earlier this spring. We started our solicitation on April 1st. By June 15th, we had collected 107 letters of intent where we let people give a range of how much they thought they would apply for. So we had a low of 60, a high of $80 million in requests, and then all the applications were due by August 31st, where, like I said, we got 99 applications, which is just around in line of what we got for the first round of funds that we allocated in 2019. We got about 112 applications the first round. We got about 99 applications this round, equaling about $73 million in requests. So what's happening next is we are scoring those applications based on the scoring criteria that you all helped to create on the advisory committee. We'll also be doing ground conditions reviews. In October, the Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee at our meeting on October 20th will make the recommendation for which projects to fund. And then in December, that project list will go to the Oregon Transportation Commission. By January, we should be able to start signing contracts. And as soon as those contracts are signed, people can start spending funds to build the projects. So this is sort of an overview, high-level bird's eye view of what happens to the applications once they're submitted. So we've got all 99 applications. What happens next is we use the SRAC approved scoring matrix and do an eligibility review of those 99 applications. That turns into our 150% list. So what that means is we have about $26 million to allocate. And so the 100% list would be where that $26 million cutoff line is. The 150% list is that 100% plus 50% more. So about $40 million is what will be our 150% list. So we can't fund all those projects, but those are sort of the top scoring projects. So we'll take that 150% list and we'll do a ground conditions review, do kind of like a desk Google scoping, or actually go out and look at the locations that have been submitted. And then we will put those projects through some lenses that the SRAC came up with during our scoring process, mostly around geographic balance, making sure that communities within MPOs and communities outside of MPOs are both able to compete in our scoring process. And we'll go through in more detail what those lenses are. Then we will take those scenarios, those lenses, and we'll be able to provide the 100% list and 150% list with a couple of scenarios for the SRAC based on your priorities. And then you will review that in October 20th. And we'll be will be making a decision in that meeting. So the SRAC approved scoring matrix was a score out of 500. Your priorities for scoring were things like social equity factors that would help us really identify more, prioritize some health and safety criteria. Also specific safety factors around the priority safety corridor, like the speed of the road, how many lanes of crossing students would have to make, the average annual daily traffic, as well as history of crashes. We're also prioritizing elementary and middle schools. We're looking for projects that are ready, and we're looking for projects that are closer to the school. So all of those things will equal the score of the project. We'll also at the same time be doing an eligibility review, so we're making sure that the solution that they're proposing matches the problem that they're telling us about, as well as taking a look at their budget, make sure it's reasonable. Then the SRAC approved lenses that we will put over that 150% list are, we're looking to only allocate about $2 million for each applicant. So for example, if an applicant, say a city, puts in 3 applications and they're all $2 million, if all 3 of those get a really high score and they are in sort of this 100% list, we would only fund one of those. We would fund the one of those that they said was the most important. If a community, a city put in 3 projects that were all small projects, all $100,000, then we would be able to fund all 3 of those projects because it doesn't equal over $2 million. And the reason for that is to spread the money out a little bit more and not fund the same communities with a huge, with a big portion of the funds. The other lens, the other 2 lenses actually are more like tiebreaker lenses, and they also have to do with geographic balance. One is that if 2 projects are right on the cut line and they score about the same amount, then the SRAC may prioritize the new applicant versus an applicant who currently has a Safe Routes to School grant and really is just in the middle of that grant. They're not about to wrap it up. Also, if there are 2 projects right on the cut line, the SRAC may choose to prioritize a bunch of smaller projects versus 1 large project, again, to really get at that geographic balance to try to fund more communities with the funding. So that's the high level analysis. Now we'll get a little bit more into the details of the application analysis and how the scoring works. So our applications that we received, again, we received about 99 applicants. You can see that most of those applications came from cities. Some came from counties, some came from ODOT and some came from tribes. These numbers up here show you the number of applications that came from cities, counties, ODOTs, and tribes, as well as the percentage of overall applications that came from those entities, as well as the number of projects that came from each of those entities. So each application can kind of apply for, some applicants applied for several different locations within one big project. So this is kind of showing you all the different locations that were applied for. And what percentage of the funding. So you can see overwhelmingly cities where most applicants have the most projects and requested the most funding. Then counties, then ODOT came in at about 12% of the funding, and tribes came in at about 1% of the funding. In this lower part of the graph, you'll see how that spreads out by ODOT region. So you'll see that ODOT region 2 has the most applicants, has the most projects, and is requesting the most funds, which is not that surprising because ODOT Region 2 actually has a lot of the cities in the state are located in ODOT Region 2. ODOT Region 1 is the metro area and those surrounding areas. You can look through this chart and see how that funding is divided out by each region. And you'll notice that it is pretty spread out. We got applications from each region. I really like this because it shows you the percentage of applications in the yellow, the percentage of requested funding from that region, the percentage of public schools in that region, and the percentage of Title I schools in that region. And remember that Title I schools are, Title I schools are our low income schools where 40% or more students are eligible for free and reduced lunch. So what this chart tells me is that it looks like we're kind of on track with the number of Title I schools in a region and the percentage of funding requested in most regions. So there's a little bit of parallels happening. It looks like Region 5 is a little bit below the number of Title I schools they have, but this is a way to just kind of see, get a better picture of what's going on in each region and how are the applications in that region lining up with the need. This also, in this map, it shows a little bit more of the distribution. You can see exactly where the applicants are in each region. Again, if you want to see the list of applicants, I also have that sorted by region, but if you want to see the list, you can download it. Look in the notes field or the comment field of this meeting, and you'll get a link to the materials for this meeting, and there is a list of applicants in that material. All right, so here's a couple of pieces that that we often that our advisory committee members often care about in regards to our applicants and the lists of the funded projects. So just answering some of those questions for our advisory committee members. So does this applicant, is it located in a city with 5,000 people or less? So we're trying to see, were small communities able to apply? And yes, there were about 42% of the funds requested came from communities under 5,000, and about 35% of the applicants. Also, do the applicants have projects located within city limits? Most of the time, yes. Like most of our schools are located within city limits, and so most of the projects are located within city limits for this round. Does the applicant have a project within a priority safety corridor? So how our committee defines priority safety corridor is we're looking for roads with high speeds, large crossing distance, high average annual daily traffic, and a history of crashes. So those are kind of the 4 metrics that we're using. And if it meets 2 of those metrics, then it's considered a priority safety corridor and it gets prioritized in our scoring process. So you can see that over half of the applicants are applying for a project on a priority safety corridor, about 64%. And applications that have a project within a metropolitan planning organization area, this is kind of how we determine if we're geographically spread out or not, if we have some projects within an MPO and some projects outside of an MPO. And you'll notice that we do have a lot of, the majority of projects are outside of a metropolitan planning organization area. This slide is the one I find the most interesting. So for this round of funding, we focused a lot on the percentage of students receiving free and reduced lunch, so basically the income level of the students at the school, and really wanted to prioritize the higher low income schools. And so the schools with the most low income students, we really wanted to prioritize. So we broke down that percentage within our scoring process. And so we have that a little bit more data around that. And you'll notice that most of our applicants are schools with that are serving students where 90 to 100% of the students are eligible for free and reduced lunch. So this is where a lot of the need is in our state, and we got a lot of applications from those areas so that we can potentially make that school a little bit safer. Also, we're looking at applicants has projects within 1 mile of a Title I school. So Title I school starts at about this 40 to 49% range. That's whenever it's defined as a Title I school. And so most of the applications we received would be considered Title I schools. And then on top of that, we'll prioritize the more low-income schools.
Yeah, before we continue on, could we pause to see if the committee members have any questions? And if there are additional questions from audience members, you're more than welcome to type them in here. All right. So no comments from SRAC folks or questions? Shall we move on? Okay.
Great. Chris, we talked about taking a little bit of a break. Do you want to keep going for 10 more minutes and then take it at 1:45?
I think so.
All right, perfect. So here's a big overview of the staff scoring process, how we get from a big pile of applications to the final list. So this will go into a little bit more detail than the high-level overview we did before. So you'll remember this slide from before. We have 99 applications. We're going to do the scoring matrix and the eligibility review, whittle that down to our 150% list, which we'll do a ground conditions review on, and then start putting those SRAC lenses on that list. And then those lenses will turn into scenarios and go to the SRAC for review. And then they'll make their decision on October 20th. So here's a little bit more detail about the SRAC approved scoring matrix. So we took a lot of time on this. Maybe it was even, I think it was something like 3 meetings that we talked about what are the priorities, and then we really hashed out how much to weigh each priority. That turned into a scoring matrix that was then approved by the committee. So the highest possible score was out of 500. The highest weighted factors were our social equity factors that measured health and safety, as well as our specific safety factors that measured those priority safety corridor qualities. So that was the bulk of the points were given for income to try to help us get at some health and safety factors that we aren't able to gather through specific safety factors. And then in addition to that, those also additional specific safety factors that we were able to get through the application. You'll notice that school type, elementary and middle, is about 18% of the score. Project readiness is about 16%. For that, we look at things like, do you own the right of way? Do you need to move utilities? Consider stormwater drainage. Do you have all of that figured out? What about environmental resources or environmental hazards? Do you have that all figured out? As well as public process and where you are in the design process. So we take all of that into consideration. We also take in proximity to schools, very small percentage, but there's a little bit in there. We're trying to find things that are a little bit closer to the school to help more students get there. And then we do our eligibility review. Again, we look to see if the solution matches the problem. We take a look at the budget, and we try to see if it's a huge red flag that the budget's way, way, way off. We're also looking to make sure that it's a bike ped project. We have a limited amount of funds, and so we're really looking to fund those bike ped projects, not a big, huge road like intersection redesign or a project that's mostly for cars. We're looking for projects that are mostly for bicyclists and pedestrians. So that's that step 1, that the score and the eligibility review. Then we move on to step 2, which is our ground conditions review and our SRAC approved lenses, and that's for that 150% list. So the ground conditions review, the purpose is to determine if the ground conditions reasonably match the description in the application, especially around the readiness criteria. So staff completes an online assessment or an in-person assessment. Oftentimes we'll use Google Street View to kind of see what's going on in that area. Our ODOT regional staff, our active transportation liaisons, review the applications from the cities, counties, and tribes. And then our ODOT headquarters staff located in our Salem office review ODOT region applications for that ground conditions review. And again, we go through the SRAC approved lenses. So this really is going to help us with that geographic balance, making sure that projects are not all located in one specific area or for one specific entity. So again, there's a maximum of $2 million that any entity can receive. So we put the cap on there. Also, if applicants are right on that cut line, we might choose to fund a new, the SRAC might choose to fund a new project versus a project that is currently funded with Safe Routes to School funds and is right in the middle of that project and not nearing completion or mostly completed. And then if there are two projects that are tied right on a cut line, the SRAC may decide to fund several smaller projects as opposed to one large project. So using those lenses, we'll be able to create some scenarios around our 100% list using the projects from our 150% list. And those will go to our Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee for review. And that will be step 3. And they'll get a chance to, you will get a chance to review those materials, and then you will get a chance to discuss those options in our October 20th meeting. So a couple of examples from 2018 of what those scenarios look like. So in our first scenario from 2018, we had a project that actually wasn't in the public road right-of-way, and we kind of missed it through that project. So our scenario 1 was our 100% list minus that project that we missed that was out of the right-of-way, which happened to be in Warm Springs. In our scenario 2, we removed the second ranked project by any one jurisdiction. So that's sort of that. This year, how we're doing it is a cap of $2 million. In the scenario before in 2018, we just didn't allow an entity to get more than one application. So I think it's like I think that $2 million cap is a good way to do it. So that will be what our scenario 2 looks like this time. And then in that instance, we also had a scenario number 3, which was our scenario 2. Plus, we had 2 projects that had some of the parts of those projects weren't really bike ped projects. They were more car focused projects. And so our advisory committee wanted to pull those pieces out of those 2 projects. So in our scenario 3, we had our list with those specific locations that the SRAC wanted to pull out. We had those pulled out in our scenario 3. And you'll see in each scenario, we really highlighted how many additional locations we could add based on that filter. And we were really trying to get at adding some locations to our 100% list.
Great. Could we pause for a sec here and see if there are any questions? And then I think this might be a good place to do like a quick 5-minute break.
Great.
So let's, before we go on that break, are there any questions from SRAC members or participants, audience participants?
Luis here. Please remind me what the match for public agencies is.
Great. The match for the Safe Routes to School funds in general is 40%, but that can be reduced to 20% if the applicant is a city under 5,000, if their school is a Title I school, or if they have a project on a priority safety corridor. So most of the applicants will be able to get that 20% local cash match. Also note that ODOT pays the whole 40% cash match whenever ODOT applies for this funds. Does that answer your question, Luis?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or clarifications? Leanne, I just want to say that the visuals, kudos to ODOT for how you've pulled all the visuals together. It's really comprehensive, and I think it reflects a lot of the SRAC's desired information from processes past. So
yeah, feel free if you have additional questions. I can do some additional analysis before I send you the information for you to review, which is what we'll talk about next. So maybe give folks a chance to take a break. How long should we take, Chris?
Well, it's 1:45. How about we come back at 10:02, and we'll just keep moving on. I don't think we have too much more in this.
No, I think we'll be able to get done before our 2 hours. So,
Yep.
so we're trucking right along. So I think 5 minutes is a great, or 6 minutes is a great amount of time. Try to be back here at 1:50, and we'll keep chugging along with our presentation.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Right. So we're just gonna hop back into it. Remember, this meeting is being recorded. Is that okay, Chris?
Yep, let's do that.
This meeting is being recorded, so if you have any questions, you can go back through and watch it, and then feel free to reach out to me with any additional questions that you have. I know today is kind of a really weird day, being the first day of school, and half of the state is on fire, and people are being evacuated, and my husband's not home. He was like out in the wilderness, and so he's finally on his way back. So I've been worried about him, and like I can't even imagine what everyone else is going through. And so there's a lot going on right now. So if you're not able, if you're having a hard time digesting, you're in good company. Like I am also having a hard time digesting today. So just wanted to say thank you all for being here. And if you don't have any questions right now, I totally get it. And if you have some later, feel free to contact me. I think I'm still screen sharing, so I'm just going to keep rolling with this member homework. So our Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee will have a little bit of homework for this 150% list, the scenarios that we're going to send out. So we will send you all of the application materials, but we will sort of pull out that 150% list as like, if you only have a small amount of time and you don't want to look at all the materials, here's what we would think that you might want to focus on. And things to consider as you're looking at that 150% list and all of those application materials, as well as the scenarios that will help provide based on your priorities. The things that we want you to consider is that if there are any locations as a part of an application that you have questions about, or like what we did before where like, oh, that's not really a bike ped project, like we want you to consider some of those things, because those are things that we can help create scenarios about. In general, our value is that our grantees and our applicants, they know the best solution for their area. So we really want to take into account that, like, if they're putting in a location, it's something that they really need. So we want to use that sparingly, but we also want to make sure that this fund is being used for a bike ped project that mostly benefits bicyclists and pedestrians. Also, things to consider is that, did your approved lenses achieve geographic balance in the way that you were hoping they would? So just double checking that the lenses that we created are what's working for our list of 100% projects, our 100% list of projects. And if not, can you suggest a solution that might help get at what you were aiming for? So those are things to consider for you to consider whenever you're reviewing the application materials. Things not to consider are things like changing the score of an application. We agreed upon a scoring process and a matrix, and so the score is going to remain the same. The other thing not to consider is any evaluation lens that cannot be applied to all applications. So for specifics, so saying like, this particular city, I think they should be pulled out because like it's too hot there. Like that's a ridiculous reason, but like something like that where it's like an opinion is not something that we can a lens that we can apply to all of the applications. So we're really looking for lenses that can be applied across the board for all applications. So a little bit more of what to expect in whenever you're getting your homework. I will be sending you all of the application materials. Like I said before, there'll be a folder with all of the application materials. There'll be a folder with the 150% list of application materials, so a smaller amount of materials. And then I'll provide you with scenario spreadsheets that show you the different scenarios for the description of those scenarios. So that's pretty much what you're going to receive is a bunch of folders. Each applicant submitted has a PDF application. They also have a map, a backup of their budget, any design plans or preliminary designs that they have, photos of the project, so that, as well as support letters and signature pages for the application. So each application has its own folder and has a lot of documents within that folder. So those will be the documents that you can look at to learn a little bit more about each applicant. And like I said, if you only have a little bit of time, we recommend that you look at those scenario lists, and if you have questions about specific applications in there, do a little bit more digging into the application in those folders. We also wanted to remind you that we do have a conflict of interest policy in our Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee charter. And we're really looking to, if anyone on our committee would be receiving funds personally for their job, help pay for their position of any ODOT Safe Routes to School funds, then that would be a reason to have a conflict of interest, to say I have a conflict of interest, and then not vote on that particular application. Also, please remember that we use a style of voting that that uses a thumbs up, thumbs to the side, and thumbs down approach. Thumbs up meaning, as we're getting into the decision-making process, thumbs up means I'm fully supportive of this decision. Thumbs to the side means that I might not be fully supportive, but I can live with it. And then thumbs down means I oppose this decision or choice. Generally, if we have thumbs downs, that means we continue the discussion. But we do have a majority. Oh shoot, I can't think of it off the top of my head. I think it's a majority -1.
We go to a vote, and it's the majority rules of that, assuming that there's a quorum.
Right, okay. But we're looking for thumbs up and thumbs to the side. And in general, if we have a thumbs down, we discuss more because our goal is to get to thumbs up and thumbs to the side for everybody. But we do have a majority rule when it comes down to it. So we have a couple of kind of like upcoming decisions that are aside from this Safe Routes to School decision-making process around the projects that we'll be looking at over the next several weeks. So I'm about to move on from that. Are there any additional questions before we move on? Does anybody, just feel free to add them in the chat box.
Louise again.
Yeah.
Remind me who's reviewing the applications.
Right, great question. So right now I have a team of about 7 people helping me with scoring the applications, which includes myself, Jessica Horning, our bike ped program manager, as well as a couple of other staff from our new public transportation team. So our active transportation team just joined with our public transportation team in a new division. And so we have a couple of folks from that team helping out, all with the scoring. And then the secondary review is the ground conditions review. And that we've got our active transportation liaisons in each region, which is Maria Sippen in Region 1, Jenna Berman in Region 2, Jenna Marmon in Region 3, Teresa Penninger in Region 5, and Chris Chang in Region 4, doing our ground conditions reviews, as well as myself and Jessica Horning doing the ODOT ground conditions reviews.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so some of our upcoming decisions that we have that we'll be looking to make before the October 20th meeting, where we'll be going over the construction applications, is number 1, we've got a couple of people moving off of the committee. One of Anthony Buzak was one of them, and he had been a member on our rapid response subcommittee. So we have a small subcommittee that makes decisions around our rapid response grant program, which is sort of a rolling application process if there is an injury or a death of a pedestrian in a community. we can use rapid response funds to help them fund a project that would immediately address that concern near schools. So members of that committee are Lawton, Elliot DeAngelis, John Vile, and it had been Anthony Busick, and he is leaving our committee for another job. So I asked for volunteers and recommendations from our current committee, and everybody said Dana Nichols. I reached out to Dana, and she said she would be happy to join the rapid response subcommittee, but we will need a vote from our larger committee to make that official, since that subcommittee does make decisions about projects. So I will be sending an email out this week asking for people to weigh in on adding Dana Nichols to that rapid response subcommittee, and asking for a response September 25th. Dana, since you're on the call, is there anything that you would like to add? If you're still on the call. Oh, we may have lost Dana at some point. Dana joined us a little bit earlier. So she's from the city of Bandon as a planner down there, and our rapid response subcommittee is excited at the prospect of her joining. So look out for an email with that information, as well as
Hey, Leanne?
Yeah.
Didn't Dana go, unless she went back to Bandon, wasn't Dana working for the MPO in Albany?
She was.
More recently.
Yeah,
Hopefully
so
she's still there. Yeah.
she was at Bandon, then she moved to the MPO in Albany, and now she's back in Bandon.
Wow. Okay. Good for her.
So she didn't
Okay, great.
abandon Bandon.
Right. Right, exactly. I think that they're super stoked to have her back. I think she's excited to be back down there too. I got to chat with her a little bit about it.
Cool.
Great.
So look out for that email from me, and we will have an official vote on that, but I would love to have on a rapid response subcommittee. And then the second piece of information that I wanted to make sure everybody knew about was an opportunity for feedback to the Oregon Transportation Commission that that the Safe Routes Advisory Committee has on priorities in the 24-27 STIP, the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. And just as a reminder, the STIP is where in the 21-24 STIP, there was an increase in Safe Routes to School non-infrastructure funds, so the education programs, to $1 million in that 21-24 STIP. So those are the types of decisions that sometimes get made in the STIP. And there are options for individual action as well as group action from the advisory committee. So the complicated thing is, like, as ODOT staff, I take a step back from this, but I can provide information. So in the SRAC materials that you can see, in the chat box, the link in the chat box, you'll see the Oregon Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee letter that they drafted to the OTC about the statewide transportation improvement program and those priorities. We did have some SRAC participation as part of that meeting and as part of that that letter review. Mavis is a member of the Oregon Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and their committee is the one who wrote this letter. So so I will say that as a staff person, I need to that I take a little bit of a step back. But if the SRAC would like to write a letter of their own, or if individuals would like to look at that letter and send that and send something like that to the OTC, those are totally within your purview to do. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knew about that. Any questions on either of those two things? Great.
Leanne, just a quick question. Will you send a little tickler reminder to the SRAC committee members who aren't on this call?
Yes, so both of these things I'll put out in an email by the end of this week to the SRAC members, asking for the vote on for Dana for the Rapid Response Subcommittee. I will say that for the Oregon Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, the chair is the one who submits the letter to the OTC. So Mavis is the chair on this committee. So if you did want to do something like that, then I think that Mavis or Kari would be a good person to reach out to help try to organize the committee around that.
Great, thank you.
So our next steps for the Safe Routes Advisory Committee are again that email to get Dana on our Rapid Response Subcommittee. I'll be asking for those emails by September 25th. Also on your list of things to do will be to do that homework to review all those materials that we send out. I don't have set dates for that yet because we're still kind of in like the fire hose portion of this program and trying to narrow it down for you so it's a more manageable amount of information. So I'm aiming to send you files, all those files and scenarios by September 28th or around there. That'll give our staff just enough time to do those ground conditions reviews on the 150% list. And then likely your comments will be due by October 12th. So I really want to give you a 2-week time period to look at those materials and provide me with the if your filters, if your lenses did what you want them to do, as well as if there are any pieces of any project that you had questions about or might want to see removed from any particular application. So, and then the last piece is attend that meeting on October 20th where we'll decide our project recommendation. We have a little time for a couple of quick staff updates. Again, our Safe Routes to School program here at ODOT is built on 2 different divisions, which makes us even better because we get more people involved in Safe Routes to School. We have Heidi Manlove over in the Transportation Safety Division with Tracy Pearl, and they have about $1 million to allocate to Safe Routes to School, technical assistance as well as education, and engagement grants. And then we've got the infrastructure side, which is my side, the construction program, which is $10 million annually, increasing to $15 million. And now it's called the public transportation division. And we've got those competitive grants that we're just wrapping up, the rapid response grants, and our project identification program. So I wanted to do a little bit of updates kind of all at once. We're going to keep it short because we don't have, this is not a full committee meeting. This is an optional committee meeting, but we wanted to let you know all the stuff that we're working on. So, so we are still in the process of that reorg. The transportation, the active transportation team, which is where the infrastructure side of Safe Routes to School lives, has been moved into the public transportation division, which is headed by Karen Criswell, who I believe will be attending our October meeting to say hello to this committee. So we've got a new division administrator in Karen. And I've actually known Karen for a little while. She was managing the statewide transit improvement fund. I always forget what all those words mean, but the big transit funds that was allocated as part of House Bill 2017 at the same time Safe Routes was. She was managing that fund while I was managing Safe Routes. So we had kind of these parallel processes, and we were audited at the same time. So Karen and I have been working together for the past 3 years or so, and she's great. And then just a reminder that we do have a rule update that's happening right now in order to make it easier for communities to be able to pull together the cash match for this program, as well as in order to be able to approve rapid response projects quicker and more efficiently. We're doing a couple of small rule updates to help make those 2 things a little bit easier. We're in the public comment period right now for those rule updates. We will have a public comment a hearing on September 15th. So we're sort of following all of the process for that rule update, and it should be able to be approved in October. So that'll make that rapid response process quicker and more efficient, as well as make it possible for our grantees to achieve that local cash match in an easier way. the quick construction program update is that we're still chugging along with all of our 24 grantees that we funded in 2019. We had another project wrap up in Madras, and we also were able to fund 2 additional rapid response projects since we spoke last, one in ODOT Region 5 in Hermiston, and one in the city of Gresham, both due to tragic crashes that occurred in those areas, and we're able to help those communities fund a solution to those in those areas where those tragedies occurred. I'm going to pass it over to Heidi to do a quick education program update on the first day of school.
Hi, everyone. We're wrapping up the 2020 federal grant year at the end of this month, and we'll be starting year 2 of the 3-year cycle on 10/1. So we're just busy working with the grantees to move into their 2nd year. Right now, there's a big diversity of what the folks are working on, and coordinators have schools that are completely online to the diversity of some online, some in person. So you can imagine them. We're trying to help be assistance to them as much as possible, given that there's so much flux right now in terms of when schools will open and how kids will get to school or are planning to get to and from school right now. So given all this, we're just trying to take as much information as we can and move as much as we can virtually. That way, any type of information we can get out to parents and families can be done virtually and not dependent on school folks at schools helping us, because their priorities right now are geared toward just trying to get school moving. And so given that, our messaging is usually back to school messaging and safety behaviors around that. But given that we have such diversity of how kids are being schooled right now, we've decided to programmatically encourage just family safe behaviors, whether they're going to school or not. Kids are still out and about and with their family, and so this is kind of a nice silver lining to this last year with Safe Routes, and that we can focus a little more on family behaviors and kids learning from their parents, but their parents also learning from them and from Safe Routes to School practitioners. So our messaging will be more around families getting out and being safer, and I'm thinking this is probably something that can stay as a foundation to Safe Routes to School education programs, to involve more families and not focus necessarily just on kids education or community education, but also encouraging families of all types to get out together. So that's all I have for an update, unless there's anything specific, Leanne, I missed. Okay.
No, nice job on the update. Our final update is around the project identification program, which is our planning assistance, where we are able to send a consultant to communities to help them create a Safe Routes to School plan, a publicly adopted Safe Routes to School plan. We are currently wrapping up our first round of Safe Routes to School plans that got a little hitched up because of COVID-19. So a couple of them are on hold, but we were able to finish about 11 of those plans. In a way that wrap those 11 up. And then we were able to have an application process for the next round of the project identification program as we were collecting applications for the construction program. And we received 14 applications to do plans at about 28 schools. And that is within the amount of funding that we have. So we'll be doing some analysis of those applications and making sure that they meet all the eligibility criteria, but we should be able to provide assistance to those 14 communities for those 28 schools to create a locally adopted Safe Routes to School plan that helps communities address both of the construction side of the Safe Routes to School program as well as the educational side of the Safe Routes to School program, and really offers solutions for both of those aspects of barriers to students walking and biking to school. So we're really excited about that, and we'll be reaching out to those new partners in the next couple of weeks as soon as we confirm the eligibility of their application. Thank you, and I'll pass it to Chris to do sort of the last couple of bits before we let everybody go.
Okay. Thank you. And Leanne, that was really comprehensive and you ran through it smoothly. And I commend you on your tie-dye background, which I feel like being from Eugene, I should have it.
Shake things up a little bit every once in a while.
The SRAC, over the years of meeting, is constantly seeking to improve the information, how the clarity of information, and also how to improve the overall process. So one of the things that they've requested at the end of every meeting is to do a brief debrief on how it's gone, any options for improvement. And since we're in this brave, I don't know, brave, maybe scary new world right now, looking at the sky color, but ways, if there's anything that could have made this Zoom meeting better, please let us know. So you can do that verbally right now. You can put it in the chat box, or you can send Leanne an email. But let's start with any verbal comments or for your debrief of how the meeting went. And Luis, I see you right in front of me.
Zoom works. It's like family.
Rob, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have anything to add. I'm supportive of, I guess my one comment would be I really appreciate all the data that ODOT staff pulled together. It's really impressive. And I guess since I'm talking, I'll add one more thing is I saw that Mavis put in the chat about supporting putting together something through the OTC, and I'm completely on board doing something like that. It's kind of interesting because I feel like when looking across the different active transportation funding programs that ODOT has now, Safe Routes to Schools is doing really well. And unfortunately, though, it's like practically the only infrastructure grant program there is. I mean, I know there's the Community Paths program, but that's very small. And so I feel like Safe Routes to Schools shouldn't be the only ODOT grant program for walking and biking in the right of way. And so I hope that we can, I would think that maybe we could work together to put something to the OTC that, kids shouldn't just be able to walk to school. They should be able to walk around their communities. And so that would be something I would be interested in helping to put together some kind of communication on.
Cool. I encourage folks to read the letter that that OBPAC put together, the Oregon Bike and Ped Advisory Committee. It's in the meeting materials for this meeting. I think that they did a good, concise letter.
Great. Dana, are you still on? Do you have any comments? Oh, there you. So I don't have a microphone. Just want to say thank you. Okay, you're welcome. Great. And Mavis, do you have any debrief thoughts?
I think that this went really smooth. I do think we should do a letter. It looks like the idea is that I probably need to compose it and then we send it out to the committee. And then the committee reads it and we decide if we need to change anything. And then it needs to be in by the beginning of October. So it is a tight timeline.
Great.
But there we go.
And then just for Tina and Noel, since it was your first meeting, just not as formal SRAC members, but if you have any thoughts, how it went or any suggestions for improvements?
Not Tina and Noel, Lauren and Noel.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lauren. Sorry, Tina, I didn't mean to volunteer you. Yeah. My apologies. Okay. Great. All right, and then if any of the participants have any final comments or any questions that weren't answered, please put it in the chat or say you're more than welcome to speak right now. All right then.
We did it. We're early. Enjoy it. Enjoy your
October 20th.
40 minutes.
I know. That's great.
Nice
And,
job.
Yeah, nice job. And just I just hope everyone stays safe and is able to breathe better in a few days.
Yes. Yes, same. And happy first day of school, whatever that looks like for you. And hopefully that everybody's safe and learning in whatever environment is what's their option. This is a weird time to say nice things. It's very hard. But good luck out there, everybody. And thanks for being a part of this. This is like the thing I'm excited about right now. So I really appreciate all of your time and energy on this program that will make our streets safer for our kids. That's one thing we can do. So thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.